If you're joining us online and you have a candle or a chalice that you'd like to light at home, so you can join us as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, or if you want to type into the chat, chalice is lit, and the name of the street or the town you're joining us from. That way our online folks can see those little sparks popping up all over our community. And here in the sanctuary, know that there are people beyond these walls joining us together in this moment. So I'm going to ask if you would be so kind as to light our chalice for us as I share these words adapted by Gordon B. McKeeman. We summon ourselves from the demands and delights of the daily round, from the dirty dishes and unwashed floors, from unmowed grass and overgrown bushes, from all incompletenesses and not yet startednesses, from the undone and the unresolved. Here we would open our eyes, our ears, our minds, and our hearts to the fullest dimensions of life. Here we summon the power of tradition and the excitement of the new, the wisdom of ages and the perception of the very young. We summon our full selves to attend to this vision of peace and justice, of wholeness and health, of delight and devotion, of the beautiful and the holy, of who we are and what we can do to bring more love into this world. Let us gather. We're going to gather in song today, so the lyrics are not going to be on the screen. They're going to be in your hymnal. We may or may not have them on Zoom, so if you're joining us at home and you know and want to sing or hum along, feel free. It's number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Yes. And happiness with all the faith as so my love is there, but you must be the promise and stay to be This is the first Sunday of April, the first Sunday of this month, and that means it is time to celebrate our birthdays. We won't be able to see our birthday video with the photos that folks submitted, but I do want to invite anyone who is celebrating an April birthday to come on up and join me just right up here. If you have a birthday this month, come on up so that we can offer you our love and blessings for the coming year. On forward, and I don't have a microphone pass around, but I am going to just
Year is also 1952. I'm 17 years old. You were saying April 12th. I'm opening yours. It's not. 1940.
I'm Jen Carroll. My birthday was April 4th, and I turned 67.
Deb Karen just turned 67.
Mark Maury, April 15th, 1956, to the man. Mike Bristow, in case you didn't notice, we're having an eclipse on my birthday. 1845 was the explosive year for me and Robert Oppenheimer.
It's not working for me.
Lorraine with me and April 24, no, so I will be 72. Lorraine with not, April 24, 72.
Carl, Michigan, tomorrow, 1960.
Carl usually was born the day after tomorrow, 1965. No, and look at all coming here will unfold for you with friends to laugh with you in good times and cry with you in the hard times. That your mind may expand with wonder for the sight you share, that your heart will grow more compassionate, that your soul will grow wiser. The world is a richer place because you are in it. Happy birthday. So we do have a story that I want to share with you this morning. So if there's anyone who likes to come forward for a story and join me up here, Charlotte gets to listen to a story this morning, which is a treat for her. Does anybody want to come join Charlotte up here with me? Sit by these candles. It's almost like sitting around a campfire up here at the chancel this morning. Come on up. Hi. So good to see you all here this morning. Come on forward. So the littlest ones are here. Right now is, oh, we've got another one of our coming of agers here. Come on up, Leland. So right now is a special month. It's the Islamic holiday of Ramadan. How many of you knew this was Ramadan this month? Right. So Ramadan, and one of the things people do during this holiday of Ramadan is they fast all day from sunup to sundown. They don't eat or drink anything. And this is a story that takes place during Ramadan. It's an old folk tale, maybe from Turkey, maybe from Syria. Hard to know exactly where it started. It's so old we don't really know where the story comes from. But this is what it says. That Mullah Nasruddin had been working in the fields all day long. He was tired and he was sweaty and his clothes were covered in mud and dirt and grass stains. Has anybody done any gardening recently? Anybody been out working after all the rain? Have anybody played in the mud recently? Yeah, and so that's kind of what Nasruddin looked like. He was covered in all of these kind of dirt and stains from gardening. And because he'd been fasting all day long because it was Ramadan, he was also quite hungry. But finally, it was almost sundown, and Nasruddin knew he would soon be able to eat. Now, the wealthiest man in the whole town had invited everyone to come and break their fast in his home that evening with a huge feast. And Nasruddin knew he would be late if he went home to change his clothes before heading into town. So he decided that it would be better to arrive dirty than late. Oh, what a party it would be. What a feast it was going to be. And as he was walking to the wealthy man's home, he was imagining all of the delicious foods that he would eat because he hadn't eaten all day long. He was imagining the dates that would start off the meal, and the lentils and chickpeas, and the olives and bread, and the falafel and the hummus, and the chicken and the beef. And then at the end, the best part of the meal, what's the best part of the meal at the end? Dessert, right? Halva and date rolls and fresh figs and baklava. Who's had baklava in here? Honey? Yeah, it's delicious. And so when Nasruddin arrived, he was looking forward to this amazing feast. And the wealthy man opened the door and looked Nasruddin up and down from the tip of his disheveled hair to his muddy boots. And without a single word of welcome, he just stepped aside and gestured for Nasruddin to come in, and then walked abruptly away. Nasruddin joined the crowd inside, who were all dressed in their very finest clothes, and the tables were set with all sorts of delicious foods, chickpeas and olives and bread and hummus. And yes, there was the baklava right there. And despite all of his efforts to hurry and get there in time, the place was pretty full, and nobody would move their seat to allow him to sit next to them. And nobody would offer him any food. He kind of had to like reach around. Have you ever had that awkward moment? You can maybe experience it as potluck where you're trying to get something and there's a bunch of people in your way, and you have to kind of reach through. Nobody made room for him or spoke to him. It was as if he wasn't even there. The other guests ignored him so completely that he couldn't enjoy the food on his plate, no matter how deliciously it had been prepared. And so after only a few bites, Nasruddin was so uncomfortable, he decided he had to leave. He went home and he changed his clothes into his finest outfit, including his most beautiful coat, one that had embroidery and was made out of rich fabric. And so then he returned to the party, and this time the host greeted him with a huge smile and said, "Oh my goodness, we're so glad you're here. Come on in." And as Nasruddin entered, everyone waved him. Everyone wanted him to sit at their table with them. He sat down quietly, and then he picked up a fig and he put it in his pocket and he said, "Eat, coat, eat." And then he picked up a falafel and he put it in his pocket and he said, "Eat, coat, eat, fill yourself." And he picked up, maybe dipped some pita in some hummus and put it in his pocket and said, "Eat, coat, eat." And then he picked up a big, beautiful piece of delicious honey-soaked baklava and he put it in his other pocket and said, "Eat, coat, eat up." Now, this is very strange behavior. No one had ever seen anyone put food into the pockets of their beautiful coat like that. They were sort of stunned into silence until somebody finally said, "What are you doing? Why are you feeding your coat?" "Well," replied Nasruddin, "when I first came to this feast in my old farming clothes, I was not welcome. No one would speak to me. But then I changed into this coat, and suddenly I was greeted warmly, and I realized that it was not me who was welcome at this party, but my coat. And so I'm feeding my coat." And he went home for the evening. And that's our story this morning. Let us sing our kids out to their activities this morning with Charla and Janie. I invite you now to join me in a time of reflection and meditation and prayer. And as we come out of this time, we'll sit in silence for a few minutes, and then we're going to move right into singing a song together. It's called "Winds Be Still," and it's number 83 in your hymnal. So if you want to open that up and just have it available on your lap so that you can sing right from where you are, you don't have to rise for this reflective song, number 83. As you open the music and set it on your lap, perhaps you might pay attention to how you are in the space, wherever you are. Get in touch with your breathing, that air moving in and out of your lungs. Get a sense of your body in space, and this time transformed by candlelight. or wherever you are, feel your hands, maybe holding them open in your lap, or softening your gaze, or even closing your eyes if you like. Get in touch with that breath moving in and out of you. Aware that you are a body in space with other bodies in this world. Let us bring attention to those places in ourself where we are experiencing disconnection, loss, or grief. Perhaps holding in our heart loved ones who are going through difficult times. Let us start right there, close in, and extend compassion to yourself, to those you know who need it. Holding a compassionate gaze for all those who are going through a difficult time right now. And let us extend now that circle of compassion a little bit wider, out into the world, into this wider community that we share. Maybe call to mind someone you know but never really spoke to, someone that you've met, maybe check out at the grocery store who you see regularly, somebody in your workplace, an acquaintance. You don't know their story, they don't know yours, but you've had a human interaction of some kind. Call that person to mind. Extend to them that same compassion, regard. Extend to them your sincere hope that they be healthy and well, that they thrive in this world. Now extend out that ripple of care, that extension of our awareness to this whole wider community, people you've met, people you've never met. Hold as large of a circle as you can and extend out that compassionate regard that all may thrive and be well, connected and healthy and whole. Let us now extend our compassion. This one's kind of difficult. Call to mind someone with whom you have conflict right now, someone who maybe you know personally, or someone who's in the news, someone where it creates a sense of tension and unease when you're in their presence or thinking about them. And this is the challenging part. Call that person, that someone to mind, and extend to them that same compassionate regard. May they be healthy and loved and whole. May they find relief from any suffering they carry. May they know they are connected. Let us extend that compassion out even farther if we can, to cover the entirety of the earth. If you can extend your imagination out like a ripple, like when you look at those earthquake maps, the epicenter right here in this room, rippling out across the globe, rippling out to all the places where we know suffering is deep, to Ukraine, to Gaza, to Sudan, to all of those living in the midst of violence and war, all of those rushing to help their neighbors survive trauma, all of the private battles that are being fought every day around this earth. Let us hold the entirety of it in our compassionate regard, holding hope for the thriving of all of us, of each of us, knowing that none of us are free until all of us are free. May we be happy and healthy and whole. May we be at peace. Let us enter into a time of quiet together. So I have two readings I would like to share this morning from Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman is an African-American 20th century theologian, mystic, contemplative, someone that I turn to quite often when I am looking for words of wisdom. And if you haven't read Howard Thurman, I encourage you to pick up one or two of his books. One of these is from Meditations of the Heart, an excellent place to start with Howard Thurman. And the other one is from For the Inward Journey. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure it would illumine my path for the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic, but little by little there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey, details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, Surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve, that in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve. The second reading is from Meditations of the Heart. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashing, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting love. With full intensity, we seek, ere the quiet passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning to our chaos. We look at ourselves in this waiting moment, the kinds of people we are. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our day? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis and where are our values focused? And for what end do we make sacrifices? Where is my treasure? And what do I love most in life? What do I hate most in life? And to what am I true? Over and over the questions beat in upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note, which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed, and we move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. So ends our readings for the morning. Sometimes the candlelight is unexpected, but it aligns just so perfectly with the work that we are doing together this. Every month, the offering goes to support a project or a program that the Unitarian Society believes lives our values in the world. And just recently, we asked the congregation, what projects do you see in our community that are worthy of our support? And you voted, and one of them was the Wilderness Youth Project, known affectionately as WIP, to those of you who've participated here in town. The Wilderness Youth Project has been a resource for decades here in this community, getting kids out into nature, getting them reconnected with the earth, the seasons, and the natural world in beautiful ways. And so if you don't know about WIP, I encourage you to read more about it in your order of service or go find out about them online and give as generously as you're able to support their work and the work of this congregation. And please read with me the affirmation of gratitude and giving that is in your order of service. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. Thank you, choir and musicians. So how many of you gathered here this morning have had a profound thought or a spiritual experience or personal revelation, and in the moment, it felt like an idea that would fundamentally change you in some way forever, only to wake up the next week pretty much exactly the same person that you were before? How many of you have had that experience, right? How many people are going to go watch the eclipse tomorrow and hope that that few minutes that the sun is in total shadow will change their life, only to wake up maybe next week and realize the same patterns exist that marked their life before that moment of totality? That's not to say that there aren't moments that change our lives, but more often than not, despite what we might see in the movies and in reality TV shows, personal transformation does not usually happen in one single life-altering thunderclap or celestial event. We're used to seeing dramatic portrayals of personal growth happen all of a sudden, right? In the movies and TV shows we watch, the man stands at the airport and suddenly drops his bags and turns around and runs back toward the life that he wants to have, right? The woman sits behind her desk and all of a sudden you see a change come over her face and she strides into her boss's office and quits right then and there and walks out. ESPN replays that moment where the game was won, right? That game-winning play, as if there weren't hours and weeks and lifetimes of practice behind it, coaches and support staff, as if the whole game hinged on the moment the MVP touched the ball and drove it toward the goal or the net or the end zone. The moment is usually not the whole story when it comes to change. That is what I love about the Howard Thurman reading. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. It's one of those readings I turn to again and again precisely because it names that reality that we have a tendency to rely on these flashes of inspiration to change us. And in that moment, we forget how easy it is to let it slip away. We have forgotten how easy it is to forget. So what do we do about this, about our tendency for distraction, about the slide back into the old ways of being in which we just let the days wash over us again? How do we make transformation and growth stick? This question, how we make personal growth and transformation stick with us, took shape as I pondered our current calendar. Our calendar right now, which contains this series of 3 major religious holidays over the course of March and April. Lent in the Christian tradition, Ramadan in the Islamic tradition, and coming up soon, Passover in the Jewish tradition. All 3 holidays, while different in a lot of ways, also have some overlapping similarities. They are all long holidays, multi-day observances that ask participants to make significant changes in their daily life over a set period of time. So because we value pluralism and understanding diverse religious traditions within Unitarian Universalism, let's take a moment and maybe refresh our knowledge of some of the basics of these holidays. All 3 holidays are somewhat mobile because all 3 holidays are connected to lunar cycles rather than being tied to a particular date on the 365-day solar calendar that governs most of the rest of our life. Lent is 40 days, not including Sundays. It's the 40 days before Easter, and Easter, as we talked about last Sunday, Easter falls on the first full moon after the spring equinox. So Easter changes a little bit every year, as does Lent. And Lent commemorates the 40 days that Jesus was said to have spent fasting in the desert. And it starts on Ash Wednesday, which this year was February 14th, and it ends on Easter Sunday, which was just last week on March 31st. Ramadan, like all Islamic holy days, follows a lunar calendar as well. It's a lunar calendar that doesn't perfectly line up with the solar calendar, and so it moves about 11 days every year, which means that Ramadan will pass through all the seasons of the year eventually. The month of Ramadan is a celebration of the revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. And this year it started on the evening of March 10th and will conclude this coming Tuesday on March 9th. Now, Passover, like all Jewish holidays, is also tied to the lunar calendar, but unlike the Islamic calendar, the Hebrew calendar adds an extra month into the cycle every 2 or 3 years. So the holidays stay roughly in alignment with the seasons. So although Passover moves around a bit, like Easter, it is always a springtime holiday. And Passover commemorates the Exodus, the escape to freedom of the Jewish people from their enslavement in Egypt, and it lasts for 8 days. This year, Passover begins on the evening of Monday, April 22nd, and ends on Tuesday, April 30th. But it's not just the lunar calendar and the dedication of a certain stretch of time that these holidays have in common. These holidays all structure time and space in such a way as to get us out of our daily routines and into something else, something more contemplative, something that interrupts those interruptions and allows us space. And they ask for changes in the most basic of our human needs, the way we eat. Each of these holidays asks for a change in a participant's relationship with food. All require that participants change their eating habits for the duration of their holiday. Fasting is part of the Lenten observance, although the specific practices vary in different strains of Christianity. If you're Catholic, you're asked to fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday and abstain from eating meat on Fridays during Lent. Some Christians decide to give up eating animal products altogether for the whole time. And it's also common for a person observing Lent to pick something in particular that they really enjoy and let it go. Give it up. Perhaps sweets, perhaps social media, perhaps binge watching Netflix, something that you can live without for 40 days, but it causes a little bit of friction in your life to do so, a bit of a challenge. Changing the way you engage with food is also a major part of Ramadan. From sunrise to sunset, healthy adults are asked to fast, to abstain from all food and drink during this month. People wake up before dawn to have the first meal of the day, and then wait until sunset to break their fast with family and friends, a break fast meal called iftar, which often happens at the mosque, or extended family and friends move from house to house, night to night. And a commitment to practicing this daily fast during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And Passover also reshapes a person's relationship with food. It is known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And during this holiday, no leavening, no yeast, no fermentation of any sort is allowed. And so in preparation for Passover, all leavened products must be removed from the house. A furious cleaning takes place to sweep away any tiny crumbs of bread that might exist. And then, of course, there's the Passover meal itself, which is another reminder to sign up to participate in ours on the 27th. So observance of all of these 3 holidays requires a shift in how you eat and drink and live your daily routine. There are a few other overlapping practices as well. They all emphasize that this is a time of prayer and generosity and charity. It's a time for skipping the regular entertainments and distractions of life and instead choosing to engage with the sacred texts, sacred stories, prayers. It's a time for remembering those who have persevered through hardship. And it is a time for gratitude for all that we have and letting that gratitude inspire generosity. So what does this have to do with our original question that we started with, how we make personal transformation stick beyond just the moment? Well, ritual practices, no matter what religious tradition you come from, ritual practices work on many layers. There's the explicit theological reason given for why a holiday occurs, like fasting during Lent is an example of following Jesus's fast in the desert for 40 days, or the telling of the Exodus story during Passover. But there's also a way that ritual works on the mind and the body that transcends any one particular theology. And it is this change, this fully embodied change, this transcendent change that usually takes time. The lived experience of participating in any of these holidays is more than just the theology behind it. It's the feeling of being hungry during the fast. It's the time spent in preparation of the home. It's the sound of laughter and conversation with friends and family late into the night, much later than you might normally stay up. These major holidays are not just one and done ritual observances. They are practices that are spread out over the course of days and weeks, and they demand more than just an intellectual understanding of why they come around. They ask people to engage not just in reflection, but in tangible physical transformation, changing the rhythms and patterns of basic routines like what we eat and how we order the time of our days. These traditions remind us that over thousands of years of human history, we have learned that making meaning out of our lives requires more than just intention. It also requires time and space. Space set aside to let change settle into our souls. A great idea, a spiritual awakening, a profound shift in perspective without the time to reflect and reify. Reify is one of my favorite words. It just means to take something abstract and make it real and concrete. Without the time to reify these ideas, they will fade away. And soon we will be back to business as usual. But then Ramadan comes along and says, nope, for 30 days, you are going to this time to fast and reflect and pray and integrate your spiritual and ethical aspirations that you so often set aside in the rush of life. You're going to take the time to integrate them into your life every day for a whole month. and see what that does. Passover says that every time you put a bite of food into your mouth during that whole week, you will be reminded of the sacrifices it takes to achieve liberation. We won't let you forget every time you put that dry piece of matzah in your mouth. And Lent says, slow down. See if you can live more simply. Make space for that still small voice that only emerges with time and attention. So get up and watch the dawn before sunrise. Clean out the cupboards, say a daily devotional, be different every day for this little while and see what happens. Stay open to the possibility that you will come out of this time changed. And perhaps some of those changes will stick. As Howard Thurman said, the true purpose of all spiritual disciplines is to clear away whatever may block our awareness of that which is God in us. Or for those of us who don't think in terms of what God wants, but rather in terms of what helps us lead ethical and meaningful lives, spiritual disciplines help us get clarity about what is most important and how we might live with more awareness of our ideals. And with some time and space, learn how to live those ideals more fully, not just on holy days, but every day. And then when the holiday is over and we return to our regular living, we have something more than just that one moment to hold on to. We have a lived experience. We have a practiced shift, a sense memory of what being different feels like that you can refer back to whenever you want. Howard Thurman called this time to center down. We can remember what it felt like. In Unitarian Universalism, we don't have our own multi-day holiday on our calendar yet. We are a living tradition. Who knows what will emerge in the decades and centuries to come? But we can learn from our roots, from our neighbors and friends, from the pluralistic tradition of our faith that welcomes wisdom from many sources. And we can take this wisdom to heart and build time and space for transformation and be patient with the shift inside ourselves. So now go and see the eclipse tomorrow, at least the 60% that we will be able to see here. Experience that moment of wonder. And then center down. May it be so. Blessed be and amen. Let us sing together one more time, numbered 86. Blessed Spirit of my life, please rise in body and spirit and join in song number 86. So go ahead and stay right where you are if you want to put your hands over your heart, or if you have permission to hold hands with your neighbor, say hello to someone, get connected. You can hold your hands open if you prefer, if you're joining us from home in our Zoom sanctuary. Thank you for being with us on this unique moment in this sanctuary. And as you go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Let us call out a blessing.
Oh, yes. Oh,